This is Jarrod Horak, and this is my latest Saratoga Weekend Stakes video, and I'm going to do the Grade 1 Alabama in this video. Now, if you're interested in reading my Saratoga and Del Mar handicapping articles, head on over to todaysracingdigest.com. You'll find all those articles there. I've been posting articles all summer long, stakes previews from Saratoga, stakes recaps, Del Mar stakes recaps, my top-ranked 3-year-olds, and much, much more. So head on over to todaysracingdigest.com to read all of those articles. And in the description in this video, I'll provide a link to those handicapping articles. And the past performances in this video are going to be provided by todaysracingdigest.com. And now we're going to get into the analysis of the Grade 1 Alabama Stakes. And this race is the 9th race at Saratoga Race Course, Saturday, August 19th. $600,000 purse for 3-year-old fillies, and they're going to be traveling 1.25 miles on the main track. Scheduled post time, 5:45 p.m. Eastern Time. We have an interesting renewal of the Alabama this year, and breaking from the inside post is number 1, Sacred Wish. She's 8-1 morning line. John Velasquez will ride for trainer George Weaver. George Weaver having an outstanding meet at Saratoga this summer. This is the daughter of Not This Time, and she's 1 for 6 lifetime with 3 runner-up finishes and a show finish. She broke her maiden at 6 furlongs second time out, and then after that, she moved to the George Weaver barn. She was second, rallying from off the pace in the Gulfstream Park Oaks. She was 9th, beating 16 lengths in the Grade 2 Black-Eyed Susan Stakes. She added Lasix in an optional claiming race in the mud at Belmont in June, and she was second best there. The winner came back and won her next start, and Sacred Wish came back in the Grade 1 Coaching Club American Oaks at Saratoga at 1 mile and an eighth on July 22nd. 5-horse field, and it was very light on pace, that race was. And she was almost 11-1 that day. And she's had a great trip. She was tracking in second. She took over the lead and opened up a 2.5 length lead in the stretch, but she could not hold off Wet Paint. Wet Paint ran her down and was finishing very well in the end, and she won by a neck. And Wet Paint and Sacred Wish were more than 8 lengths clear of the show finisher Gambling Girl, also in this race. So she has to meet Wet Paint again in here at a longer distance, and she should work out a good trip. I expect her to save ground, stalking the pace. She should be right in the thick of things, but with coming off of that effort last time, short field, slow pace, perfect trip, and she still couldn't hold off Wet Paint, and now she's got to travel another furlong and try to hold off Wet Paint, and I don't know that she can do that. But if you like her, she's going to set a great trip, and she should offer value. Number 2, Wet Paint. She's your 2-1 morning line favorite, and she's been outstanding this year. She's 4 for 6 with a runner-up finish this year, and overall she's had 9 career starts, 5 wins, 2 seconds. This Godolphin-owned filly, Blame is the sire, Street Cry the dam sire, certainly bred to run all day. Brad Cox, Flavien Prat, and Flavien Prat's ridden this filly 5 times, and she's won 4 times. She's just been in outstanding form all year. Oaklawn Park, she was excellent. She won the Martha Washington, the Grade 3 Honeybee, and the Grade 3 Fantasy Stakes. She handled a wet fast track, the slop, and a fast track. In the Kentucky Oaks, she ended up finishing 4th. She was the favorite that day. It was a 14-horse field. She was grinding away, and she just couldn't get there. She missed 3rd by a neck. Okay effort, but not her best effort. In the Monomoy Girl Stakes, 1 mile at Ellis Park, the 1 mile distance is too short for her. Absolutely no pace help in that race. 25-1, 48-4, 113 flat. She tried to rally from last place, but Hoosier Filly was controlling the race, and she won easily. Wet Paint clearly second best. And then in her last start, that Coaching Club American Oaks, short field, she rallied from last, didn't get a ton of pace help, but she closed anyway. The key to her is if she can just keep the leaders in her sight. She doesn't have to come from way back. She's come from as far as 12 lanes back in the Grade 3 Fantasy, but she was only 4 lanes back in the Monomoy Girl, 4 lanes back in the Coaching Club American Oaks. So if the pace is slower, Flavien Prat will keep her closer to the pace. If the pace is quicker, he'll let her lag further behind. I don't think she'll have any problem with the 1.25 mile distance. An interesting trainee in here is number 3, Julia Shining. She's 5-1 for trainer Todd Pletcher. Luis Saez is the rider. He's ridden in all 4 of her career starts. Curlin is the sire. AP Indy the dam sire. This is a sister to Malathot, and Malathot won this race. So Julia Shining still has plenty of upside. She won her career debut at 7 furlongs. She looked a little bit lost in the early going, like she didn't know what she was doing. She was 11th in a 12-horse field. She came alive in the stretch, and then she won that race going away by more than 2 lengths. Her second career start, the Demoiselle Stakes. She went from 7 furlong debut maiden winner to the mile and an eighth grade 2 demoiselle in the slop second time out. And in a 7-horse field, she rallied from 6th. She finished nicely, and she won by a neck. And she defeated Gambling Girl, her stablemate in that race. She made her first start this year in the Suncoast Stakes. Now, your 2-year-old champion Wonder Wheel was in that race, but Dreaming of Snow was able to get out there and steal that one as a long shot. Wonder Wheel ended up finishing second, and Wonder Wheel is disappointed this year. But Julia Shining was a solid third from post 8 in that 8-horse field at 1 mile and 40 yards. That race was just too short for her, and it was just the beginning of her campaign, and she was third, beaten 1.5 lengths, and she was more than 7 lengths clear of the rest. In her next start, the Grade 1 Ashland at Keeneland at 1 mile and a 16th. That 1 mile and a 16th at Keeneland has that short stretch, definitely played against Julia Shining, and she was adding Lasix for the first time, and the speed kept going in there. Defining Purpose ended up winning that when she's in this race. And Julia Shining just missed second. Punch Bowl was second there, just by a neck in front of Julia Shining. And Julia Shining was clear of the rest. A solid effort. She was beaten 3/4 of a length, and you just figured she was going to get better with added ground, because her best race was in the Demoiselle at 1 mile and an eighth, and she's certainly bred to continue to go on and get better as distances increase. And then they entered her in the Kentucky Oaks, but she was on the also eligible list. She did not get in. They briefly considered her for the Black Eyed Susan Stakes, and then she had a setback and she went on the shelf. And now she's back, making her first start since April 7th. So she's back off of a more than 4-month layoff. And she can stalk, she can close. She's got the pedigree to run all day. And the question's going to be, is she fit enough to run a big race at 1.25 miles off this layoff? Todd Pletcher, good layoff trainer, and she had a bullet workout at Saratoga on August 5th. Sabra, Tuff, number 4 in here for trainer Dallas Stewart. This is a daughter of Cross Traffic. Raylu Gutierrez is going to ride. She's 1 for 9 lifetime. She's 0 for 3 at Saratoga. She just looks overmatched in here. If you look at her speed rating, she's not as fast as the other horses. She is winless at Saratoga. She's never run this distance. She ran in a 1 mile and an eighth optional claiming race last time, 6-horse field. She finished 4th. She just looks overmatched in this spot. Number 5, Fireline, one of 2 horses for trainer Chad Brown. This is a daughter of Arrogate, and she's shown ability. She struggled in her first start in the slop. She was 5th, beaten 17 lengths last fall. A 1-turn mile at Aqueduct second time out. Pressed the pace, took over, and won by 13 lengths. She added Lasix in her first start this year. A 1-turn mile at Belmont Park, optional claiming race. She was the favorite. She stalked, she took over in the stretch, and she won by 1.25 lengths under Flavian Prat. Bill and Davis rode last time in the Grade 3 Delaware Oaks. She was 90 cents on the dollar in that 8-horse field, and she was just a flat 4th. She broke from post 4, she broke 4th, and she was just 4th all the way around the track, never got seriously involved. So now they're going to try to go 1.25 miles. I'm not against her pedigree at 1.25 miles for this Juddmonte filly, but we're just going to have to see where she fits class-wise. Obviously, she looked good in her maiden win and her optional claiming win, but in her only stake start last time, she raced flat. So she's going to have to pick up her game, probably stalking the pace in here under her new rider, Javier Castellano, and he was aboard for her maiden victory. Number 6, Chocolate Gelato, is a Todd Pletcher trainee. Practical Joke is the sire. I'm not convinced that she really wants to go 1.25 miles, especially in her current form in here, but she did run well at Saratoga last year. 3rd in her career debut at Saratoga, 5.5 furlongs, and then she broke her maiden by 8 lengths at 6 furlongs at Saratoga, wiring the field. The Grade 1 Frizette in the slop, she won that race, but that wasn't a fast race, but she did get that graded victory. Then the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies, she stalked, she spit the bit in the stretch. She was 12th, beaten 14 lengths in a 13-horse field. She came back in the 6 furlong Jersey Girl on June 11th. She was the favorite, 5-horse field. She stalked, she made a little bit of a middle move. She weakened, she finished 4th, beaten a bit less than 4 lengths. The runner-up was the next out winner. This is a tough spot for her, for this Repoli stable runner. And Jose Ortiz is going to ride. And it just looks like she's just in too tough. They paid $475,000 for her. She is a Grade 1 winner, but her best races have been around 1 turn. She hasn't run a quality race since October of 2022. And I wouldn't even be shocked if they end up saying that this is too tough of a spot. We're going to scratch and look for a softer spot, but we'll have to see how that all plays out. Number 7, Gambling Girl, for trainer Todd Pletcher. This is a daughter of Dialed In. If you're playing exotics, I think you got to consider this filly. Irad Ortiz Jr., the leading rider, gets aboard, and she's 8-1. He wins races with Todd Pletcher. She's run 3 times at Saratoga with a win and 2/3. I don't know that the distance is going to cause her a lot of trouble. She's a New York bred filly, and both of her wins were in 7 furlong races against New York bred company. But she has done well in the stakes ranks. The Grade 2 Demoiselle, she was 3rd beaten a length. The Busanda Stakes, she was 2nd that day. She was 4th in the Honeybee, and then in her last 3 starts, the Grade 3 Gazelle, she was 2nd. She was 2nd beaten a neck in the Kentucky Oaks at 13-1. The Coaching Club American Oaks, she was the beaten favorite. She was overbet that day. That was her first start since the Kentucky Oaks, and she was 3rd beaten almost 9 lengths. So now Irad Ortiz Jr. is probably going to have her in a decent spot off the pace with some pace to chase. And I can see her hitting the board in here. I would be a bit surprised if she won, but I can definitely see her hitting the board. The next entrant is Randomized, number 8, and she is 9-2 for trainer Chad Brown. Joel Rosario is going to ride. And for this filly, she's probably the one to catch. This is a daughter of Nyquist. I don't love her 1.25 mile pedigree, but I do respect her early speed. And she's run twice at Saratoga with a win and a 1/3. She began her career at Saratoga last summer in a sprint. She stalked, she weakened, she did finish 3rd there, and she held that 3rd place position. A 1-turn mile in her second race. That was at Aqueduct, and she broke her maiden by 5 lengths, controlling the pace. The Grade 1 Acorn, from an inner post, she ended up finishing 6th, beaten 11. That was a disappointing effort. And then the restricted Wilton Stakes at Saratoga at 1 mile. It was only a 4-horse field, and she was able to get out there and control the pace in that 4-horse field. And it was a relatively fast race, and she won by 1.5 lengths. So now Rosario's her new rider. I don't know what we're going to get from her in here. I really don't. She's a $425,000 purchase. I know she'll probably be in front early, but this is just a much tougher cast. It's not like she's just going to be out there by 5 lanes going 49. I don't see that happening. I think that she's going to be in front, but she could face some pace pressure, and you think she's going to be challenged at some point, and we'll see how good she is in this spot and how far she wants to run. Number 9, Taxed. She was an outstanding $50,000 claim. She broke her maiden in a maiden claiming $50,000 last fall at Churchill, and she wired the field that day and won nicely. Randy Morse claimed her for that price, and then she was 4th in her next start in the year's end. And then in the Martha Washington, she was 2nd behind Wet Paint, and she was 9th in the Honeybee, and then they took blinkers off, and that has been the key to success. The Grade 3 Fantasy on April 1st. She rallied from 6th place to finish 2nd behind Wet Paint that day, and then she won the Black Eyed Susan Stakes at 11-1 odds, rallying from 6th in a 9-horse field. In the Grade 3 Indiana Oaks on a good track last time, absolutely no pace help. They were completely walking on the lead there, 24, 49, 114. From the inside post, she was last, she rallied, she finished a clear 2nd. That was a very nice effort under Rafael Bejarano, a regular rider. And now I expect at this distance, she handled the 1.1 mile in the Black Eyed Susan. No reason she can't handle a 1.25 miles, and she should get a better setup in this race. Defining purpose, set that perfect trip in the Indiana Oaks last time. She chased from 2nd, and she took over, and she won by 1.25 lengths. The thing about her throughout her whole career is she just never puts 2 races together. She broke her maiden by 6 lengths last fall at Churchill, then the Grade 2 Goldenrod. She finished 5th. Then she bounced back. She won the year-end stakes by 5 lengths. Then in the Martha Washington, she was the even money favorite. She finished a disappointing 3rd behind Wet Paint and Taxed. In her next start, again, off the board in the Honeybee, she bounced back with a big effort, winning the Ashland Stakes, setting a perfect tactical outside trip. In her next start, the Kentucky Oaks, she disappointed, and then the Indiana Oaks, she bounced back. So she just seems to be every other race, or she just doesn't put 2 together. And I think this is going to be a tough spot for her to put 2 together. The outside post, she's going to be stalking wide, going a longer distance. She's good at 1 1/16 miles. Don't know if she's going to be as good at 1.25 miles. And I just think I would rather play Taxed coming out of that Indiana Oaks based on the different trips that those 2 sat in that race. So looking at this race, it's very interesting, and it certainly goes through Wet Paint. I think if the pace is honest, and I think Wet Paint is certainly the filly to beat in here, but a few others are definitely contenders. I don't know what to do with the Chad Brown trainees, but I would not be surprised if Randomized got out there and hung in there a long time. I don't really like Defining Purpose in here for the reasons that I mentioned. I do like Taxed to finish somewhere in the mix. I would definitely consider using her in wagers. And for exotics, I would definitely use Gambling Girl. I think she's been pointing to this race for months, and she can improve in her second start off of the layoff. I'm going to go with Julia Shining. She was a horse that I've always liked. She's had that outstanding pedigree, and she's bred for the distance. I know that she's not going to have any trouble with the 1.25 miles. It's just a question of, is she fit enough? In this 3-year-old filly division, we haven't seen fast races all year. So this is just looking at a fresh face in here that still has upside. Her best races are in front of her. I just don't know quite sure if she's ready to run her best race at 1.25 miles on Saturday. But at 5-1 or higher, I'll certainly take my chances. So I'll make Julia Shining my value top choice in the Grade 1 Alabama. So don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment if you like this horse racing content. And go over to todaysracingdigest.com to read all of my articles. I did an early preview of the Alabama weekend stakes races. You can check that out. I'm going to do another written preview of the Alabama on that website as well. And then just go on over there and check all that information out if you're interested in that. And until I see you next time, good luck at the races.